All right, welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going international, heading over to the Philippines. We're going to look at a case that went all the way up to their Supreme Court. And it's a really interesting one. It really makes you think about, how insurance works and what happens when you think you're covered, but maybe you're not.
Yeah, insurance policies can be tricky. There's a lot of fine print and legal jargon that can be confusing.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so fascinating. We've got the actual Supreme Court ruling from 1990. It's the case of Perla Compania de Seguros,
That's
Incorporated.
PCSI for short.
Ah, yes, PCSI versus Milagros Cayas. Now, Cayas, she was a bus owner.
Right, and this case all stems from a bus accident back in 1978. One of the passengers, Edgardo Perea, he sued Cayas for damages related to the accident.
So it sounds pretty straightforward so far, right? Bus accident, passenger sues, that's kind of what insurance is for.
You would think so,
Well,
but that's where things start to get interesting.
oh, I bet. What happened?
Well, Cayas, she had insurance through PCSI. But get this, before the case with Perea even went to court, Cayas had already settled with 3 other passengers who were also injured in the accident. She paid each of them P4,000.
I see. So she was trying to be proactive and take care of things quickly. It sounds like she was doing the right thing. Did she try to involve PCSI at all during this?
She did. She actually tried to inform them right from the beginning, but there was some procedural errors, mistakes made along the way.
Ah, so even though she was trying to do the right thing, these errors, these mistakes, they ended up causing a big problem down the line.
Unfortunately, yes. These procedural errors, they gave PCSI an opening to challenge their obligation to cover the damages. It's kind of like having the right key, but using it on the wrong lock.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Okay, so we've got Caius, who is now facing these legal and financial challenges, and we've got an insurance company that might not pay up. Let's talk about the insurance policy itself. What did it actually say?
Well, the policy, it had a limit of P12,000 per person for injuries. And the maximum payout for any one accident, that was P50,000.
P50,000. That doesn't seem like a lot, especially for a bus accident where you could have multiple people injured.
It wasn't a lot. And keep in mind, this was back in 1978. But here's the real kicker. The policy had this very specific clause, and it required Caius to get written consent from PCSI before settling any claims.
Okay, I see where this is going. Because she settled those first 3 claims without that written consent, PCSI saw an opportunity to avoid paying the full amount they might have otherwise owed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
PCSI argued that they had already fulfilled their end of the agreement by paying the P12,000 to Perea, which was, the maximum per person. They basically said, hey, Caius broke the contract by settling those other claims without our permission, so we're not responsible for those.
This whole situation just goes to show that having insurance doesn't automatically mean you're completely protected, right? It highlights the importance of understanding the specifics of your policy.
Absolutely. It can be easy to overlook the fine print, but those little details can have huge consequences, especially in a situation like this.
It makes you think, though, if this had all happened now instead of back then, would things have been different?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it with email and text messages these days. It's so much easier to communicate quickly. Back then in 1978, it would have taken much longer for Caius to get that written consent.
Yeah, you've got a point. She probably would have had to make phone calls, send letters. Who knows how long it would have actually taken to get that approval. And all the while, she's dealing with the fallout from this accident and people are injured. It's a high-stress situation.
It really is. It's understandable how those procedural errors could happen under those circumstances. But, even though we can't go back in time, this case, it serves as a really good reminder for us all to, be proactive, understand our rights and responsibilities, and if we need to seek expert advice when things get complicated.
Absolutely. So what did the Supreme Court ultimately decide? Did they side with Cayas or the insurance company?
The Supreme Court, they ended up ruling in favor of PCSI, the insurance company. They basically said that the clauses in the insurance policy, they were valid and that contracts are legally binding.
So even though Caius was in a difficult position, the court said she was still bound by the terms of her contract no matter what.
Exactly. They said that PCSI had done what they were supposed to by put that maximum per person amount to Perea. And because Caius had settled those other claims without that written consent, well, in the court's eyes, she had violated the agreement.
Wow. It's a tough lesson. It really emphasizes how crucial it is to read and understand those insurance policies. Those little details, they can have huge consequences down the line.
You're absolutely right. Imagine the stress Caius must have gone through. And this just shows how one small procedural misstep can have a huge financial impact.
So what can our listeners learn from all this? It seems like the main takeaway here is to really understand your insurance policy. Not just have it, but know what it says.
Definitely. Don't just skim through it and throw it in a drawer. You really need to understand what it covers, what the limits are, and how to file a claim.
It's like they say, knowledge is power. Knowing what your insurance policy says can really make a difference.
You got it. And if there's anything in your policy that you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to your insurance agent or company. It's better to be safe than sorry.
And speaking of being safe, what about documentation? If you're ever in an accident, take pictures. Get witness statements if you can, and keep records of every conversation you have with your insurance company.
Oh, that's a great point. Good documentation can really help if there's ever a disagreement about your claim. It can protect you and provide evidence to support your side of things.
And if it gets too complicated, I'm guessing it's a good idea to talk to a lawyer.
Absolutely. A lawyer can help you understand your specific situation and how to handle the legal aspects of it all. They could also help you avoid making mistakes that could cost you money, like, settling claims without getting the proper okay from your insurance company. Having a professional on your side can make a big difference.
This has been really eye-opening. It's not enough to just have insurance. You have to understand it, know how to use it, and be ready to stand up for yourself if you need to.
It's all about being informed and prepared and understanding how the system works. That's really your best insurance.
But before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to think about. So we've talked a lot about, what individuals need to do to protect themselves when it comes to insurance. But let's look at it from the insurance company side for a moment. If you're the insurance company and you have a contract with someone and they don't follow the rules, like what happened with Cayas, what do you do? Do you just stick to the letter of the law? Or do you try to find a way to be a little more flexible and help them out?
Well, that's a tough one, isn't it? It's a real balancing act for insurance companies. They have to be fair to their policyholders and provide the coverage that's promised in the policy. But they also have responsibilities to their shareholders and to the overall financial health of the company. They can't just hand out money every time someone makes a mistake. You know what I mean?
Right. It sounds like they have to walk a fine line between doing what's right for their customers and also making sure they're running a sustainable business.
Exactly. And that's where the courts come in. Contracts provide a framework for these situations. They lay out the rules of the game, so to speak. And when there are disputes, like in this case with Cayas, the courts help to interpret those contracts and decide what needs to happen.
So this case isn't just about one bus owner and her insurance company, right? It's about the bigger picture of how contracts function in our society and how the legal system enforces those agreements.
You got it. It reminds us that agreements matter. When we sign contracts, we're making promises, and those promises, well, they come with certain consequences. If those promises are broken, the courts are there to step in and figure out how to make things right.
Listener, I hope this deep dive has given you a new way of looking at insurance, contracts, and maybe even the legal system itself. It's easy to focus on the specifics of a case like this one, but I think there are some bigger lessons here that we can all learn from.
No, I agree. It's about being prepared and understanding that even the small details can have a big impact. And it's also about understanding how contracts work. They are a really important part of our society. They provide a structure for trust and accountability when we interact with others.
So next time you sign a contract, don't just skim over it. Take the time to really understand what you are agreeing to. And if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to ask for help from someone who knows what they're talking about.
Couldn't agree more. Always remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about how things work, the better prepared you will be for whatever life throws your way.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, listener. We'll see you next time.